Into tonight, from the rock star reception for Albo and Julia Gillard's new gig to Ghislaine Maxwell's first TV interview and King Charles departing from tradition. To jump on all of that, I'm joined now by my Sunday panellists. From Sydney, the one and only Labor legend Graham Richardson and lawyer and businesswoman Caroline de Russo. And in our Canberra studio, New South Wales Senator Holly Hughes. G'day there, team.
Good afternoon.
Evening all.
All right, give me your political analysis on why, on the eve of a cut and slash budget, the PM would announce 600 million more for parents. Richo, he's your man. Please explain.
Please explain. He likes winning elections. I think that's the best answer. I think obviously when you do a giveaway like that, it's always going to be popular and well received, and I think it's probably needed. It's a sector that's always, I think, struggling. There are so many families out there in the suburbs and the towns of Australia who are doing it really tough. And so any time you can give them a present, I think they appreciate it.
All right. Holly, on top of the $5 billion childcare subsidies, it's nothing more than vote catching, especially in light of the trillion-dollar debt we've got.
It's all very strange, really, when you look at it. I mean, they're really only increasing this by 6 weeks, this paid parental leave program. So we're not talking about a really big chunk of time that parents are going to have in addition to being able to take that leave already. But the childcare payments in themselves, I mean, you're looking at people on over $400,000 are now about set to receive a huge rebate. And at the same time, they're talking about, and they're still putting that kite up about cutting the stage 3 tax cuts for people who earn $45,000 a year. So the budget's going to be very interesting where their priorities are. Not quite sure anyone can really make sense of any of it at the moment.
All right. And now I'm sure you guys haven't spent your weekend watching the New South Wales Labor conference. If you have, you need to get a life, all of you. But Caroline, what did you make of this rock star reception for both Anthony Albanese and the New South Wales opposition leader Chris Minns? It was beautiful theatre.
Well, it was beautiful theatre from those looking from the outside, but, for the Labor Party, they've just won a federal election and you'd expect them to be celebrating. I thought that was really pretty standard and in the Liberal Party, and for anyone who's involved in the organisational part of party politics, when you win an election, there is a big celebration at your next state conference. As far as Chris Minns goes, look, I imagine they're feeling pretty good about their chances for the New South Wales state election next March. Of course, no one wants to count their chickens before they hatch, but you want to get that momentum going, you want to get the morale up right before you ask people to volunteer for an election campaign.
In a previous life, Richo, you smug members of the New South Wales right would have switched Albo's microphone off, wouldn't you?
Heaven perish the thought. No, never. Well, we might have considered it, let's face it. But the Albo I see today is not the Albo I saw when I was General Secretary all those years ago. This bloke's grown up. He's transformed himself, and he's now quite something. He's now, I think, along the Hawke path, and I think a lot of people are expecting great things of Anthony, and they will not be disappointed.
I remember doing radio interviews with Anthony Albanese when he was a backbencher, and I remember him talking and answering in 3-minute grabs. You were asleep by the second minute. We get none of that now. He's learnt from his experience, hasn't he?
He has indeed. I mean, he's had a long go, and I think that really helps. Anthony understands people, but importantly, he now understands the media. He now understands how to handle himself, and he's become a really good media performer.
Yeah. Former Prime Minister Julia Gillard has been appointed today to head a royal commission into Labor's plan to bring forward the preschool start age by 1 year. Holly, why do you need a Royal Commission to do something like that? Although, if you're going to choose someone, she's a pretty good choice. She was a very good Education Minister, Julia Gillard.
Look, I honestly don't know why they need a Royal Commission into it. There's plenty of international studies that have been done around what are the best gains made by children, particularly in those early childhood development years. There's lots and lots of information there. I don't think a Royal Commission is perhaps the best way to go about it. And I guess it's frustrating, from a parent's perspective. There is a lot of information that tells you what's best for children and how kids learn in different ways and how you can engage them more. And there's all of these theories, all of these ideas that have been put through and forward and researched, yet we're still teaching kids in exactly the same way. We've got this packed curriculum that's now got so much additional rubbish in it that kids are coming out completely brainwashed. The universities are now putting people through that barely, couldn't even get 50% in their own HSC, and they're now trying to teach our kids how to read and write. It's insanity. So I think we already know what a lot of the problems are. But I don't know we need a Royal Commission to tell us again. But it'd be nice to see if there was some real changes in the classroom where kids were taught in ways that they actually respond to and taught the stuff that's really important.
Well, maybe a Royal Commission on a federal basis for all education departments. But anyway, Melbourne psychologist Michael Carr-Gregg has been sifting through the ashes of Victoria's strict pandemic response, and today in the Herald Sun said it's got a very long tail. He's pointed to the mental impact of lockdowns and the debt which accrued as real present crises for Victorians. Right now, Caroline, these two lingering anxieties would be enough to see any normal Premier ousted, but not Dan Andrews, according to the polls. What is it about this bloke that makes him so Teflon coated?
Well, look, he's done an incredible job of making nothing his fault, even though he's the person who's in charge and accountable and yada yada. Yeah. He has a very compliant media, and he has an opposition who, despite all the ammunition, have failed to do anything really substantive with it. Look, I was encouraged to see this last week, the Liberal opposition talk about cost of living and reducing public transport costs. That was great. They had to get away from the auction of spending on healthcare, that there was going nowhere. But they really need to execute those arguments better, because they're just letting this one walk through when it shouldn't be.
Yeah, very true. Richo, you're a fan of his salesmanship, Dan Andrews. Is there any more to this bloke? I know he's very good at not recalling details in a political crisis, but is there any more to him?
I think there's a lot more to him. If you look at his history, this bloke's really quite something. He amazes me. He continues to. It doesn't matter what happens. He seems to come out in front. Even when he stuffs something up, he comes out in front. So this guy is an extraordinary politician, and much of it has to do with his manner, the way he answers questions when he's asked. He always looks so bloody earnest. Yeah, you can't believe that he's not telling you the truth. He's just got a knack, Chris, and it's quite something. When he leaves, it'll be of his own choosing. He won't get beaten in an election.
There's something sick about this story from Tallahassee, Florida, where child sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell is serving her 20-year jail term. She's been granted permission to conduct 2 television interviews for a special broadcast hosted by filmmaker Daphne Barrack. In these interviews, she backs Prince Andrew's side of his murky story and talks about her close friendships with Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Holly, would you watch?
It's just icky, isn't it? The whole thing is really quite disgusting. But, during her trial, there were lots of people asking questions about whether or not she would leverage her little black book for a lenience in sentencing or whatever would happen with the names that she knows that were travelling with Epstein, those that were involved in this, that were participating in the activities that, she's been charged with child trafficking, which is in effect, some sort of form of prostitution for these the children out to these men. She doesn't seem to be looking to give any of them up.
No. King Charles looks to have snubbed Buckingham Palace. Caroline, he won't be living or working there. He feels that on a cost and environmental perspective, it's not sustainable. He's staying put in Clarence House up the road. He's never been a fan of the big house. This stripping back of expensive tradition is rather impressive, I reckon.
It is, and for someone who does talk a big game when it comes to things like climate change, at least he's putting his money where his mouth is, compared to pretty much everyone else. So look, I'm sure that Clarence House is quite comfortable. Look, I'm sure it's not a one-bedroom flat. I think he'll be okay. But I also kind of like the idea of leaving these bigger houses open to the public for more of the year round, so that they can go through. They obviously have entrance fees and that sort of things, which help pays for the upkeep. It is actually really sensible, and I would like to see others, including his son Harry, act the way that that he would like others to.
Richo, out of 10, how's Charles III going?
Charles III would get an 8 from me, and I'm not a monarchist. But he's done very well. I think in Britain he's going to finish up the absolute opposite of where he was a few years back. He's going to finish up very popular. I guess you just can't pick them all the time, can you?
No, you're right there. Thank you. I've run out of time for you guys. Holly, Caroline, Richo, great to have you on the program. Have a good week.
On you, Chris.
You too. See you guys.
Good on you. All right. Coming